Bem-vindos a Inteligências Lúdicas, meu nome é Rodrigo Manique, estou aqui com o Lepê, meu querido amigo, e com um designer muito querido que está lançando um jogo, vai lançar no Brasil dentro de pouco tempo, que é Peter McPherson. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
It's our pleasure.
Hey, Peter, your game is coming to Brazil, right? Tiny Towns, the first one. I hope soon the expansions as well. And how are you doing?
Doing well. Hanging in here. We're just getting back to in-person gaming, so things are good. How about you both?
Yeah, here in Portugal things are a little slow, but I'll be traveling to Brazil next month to be with my friends and who knows, play live with someone.
Yeah, things here in Brazil are going slowly for the time being, but let's hope until September, October will be much better than now. But
yeah,
I already started playing some games. This one happened yesterday, so some must have. And Peter, do you remember your early game experience, the games which you played in your teens, your childhood, and the first games you played, the modern ones?
Yeah, my family has always played lots of games. I remember playing some simple kids games. There's one called Snails Pails Race or something like that. Probably a roll and move. Yeah. Some simple strategy games, and I think like around 5th or 6th grade I got into Risk, played a lot of Risk with my dad and with friends. But I would say the first modern board game I played was Carcassonne. That was in around 11th grade. My friends and I found this game in my basement for some reason, so we dusted it off, learned how to play, and it was mind-blowing, the fact that the board was always different and always expanded. Shortly after that, we discovered Catan, and those two games pretty much dominated many evenings in high school, playing them over and over with friends, so that's when I really got the bug.
And we can see in your BGG page that you have a game called Temple of Knowledge that was web published prior to your most successful game. How do you discover that you were built to make games, not only play games?
I didn't start making actual prototypes and playing them until college. Played a ton of board games through college. It's how I made a lot of friends, and they were really rough prototypes. They were not so good. I still have them somewhere in some closet. But I definitely didn't consider myself a game designer. It wasn't a huge dream of mine. Really until, I would say, a couple years after college, I had a game called Quest that never went anywhere, but I play tested it quite a bit. And then Tiny Towns was the first game where after the first 5 or 6 play tests, I actually kept at it, and the wheels didn't completely fall off. It kept working. So that's when I started really seriously pursuing becoming a game designer.
And you're creating, this game, huge success, and every people we present, introduce this game, people, my goodness, what a game! Where can I find it nowadays? Now we'll be in Brazil as well. We don't have to import anymore. And you started as creating games on your own, right? And what can you tell me about your creative process? Where does it start? From the theme, from the mechanic, or maybe a dream you had?
For me, it starts with a mechanic, I would say, but I try to attach a theme as early as possible. Like with Tiny Towns, for instance, it started with that initial concept of one player chooses a resource that everyone has to take, and then you make patterns of resources that glom down, that collapse down, and give you more space. So I had that idea before I had the town theme, and I've always loved city building games and just the coziness of little villages. So I wrote down a bunch of different theme ideas, and I probably could have done different themes, but that was the one that worked the best for me thematically, that was the best fit with the mechanics, so that's what I stuck with. But in general, sometimes I come up with a theme first, and I the mechanics sort of follow, but most of the time I come up with mechanics and then try to attach a theme as quickly as possible. So as I design the game, the mechanics inform the theme and they continue to stay tied together.
Yeah, the mechanics really well. You blended very well, really well.
Thank you.
And the process, right? The process to create tiny towns and its expansions, right? Like villages and fortune with the coins. How was to create those? Did you have the idea previously, before the big game, and the core box, or you created after?
I would say a bit of both. Before the game was released, I had the idea for coins coming into play and offering some sort of flexibility, but I wasn't sure exactly how it would work. And I should also mention that I co-designed the expansions with the developer of Tiny Towns, Josh Wood. So it's totally a collaborative experience working on those expansions after we worked so closely developing the game in the first place. Fortune was a mechanics first design, I suppose. I wanted there to be, currency of some sort, coins that did something interesting, and then we finally came up with the idea of building 2 buildings at once and thought that was a really interesting challenge. And then you get a coin, which lets you, place a different resource than what is named. And then Villagers was more of a theme first idea. We just really liked the idea of populating this town with actual little meeples that would move around and do something for you. And we tried quite a few different iterations of what the Villagers would do for you mechanically, and finally settled on the version that ended up in the expansion.
Because it blends so well. One game, the core box came, and then sometime later, the other expansions and the coins were, which I know, I had I saw the game. It blends so well. It's like, wow, everything came together. It's not like something that you put. Okay, let's put. No, it's fluid. It grew up together. You don't see each part. No, this is what. No, now you put together. It works pretty well. You don't have. There are games that you see the expansions and you see, no, this is the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So the blend so well. I had to tell you that. I don't know if someone told you this before, but I had to tell you. The Master Builder.
Thank you.
The Master Builder. The game has 2 ways to play, right? The Master Builder, where you have the hammer, mm-hmm. right, and you have to call the cubes or the wood and the material, and the others has to call out, and the others have to. Okay, I don't want this one, but I have to anyway. And there's the other one with the cards. Mm-hmm. Right, that the cards dictates what everyone has to put on the boards.
Yep.
Which of these 2 ways of playing did you have the idea first?
So the Master Builder mode was definitely the first idea, and I think that's really where my original idea for Tiny Towns came from. In fact, one of my main inspirations was this word game that my grandfather used to play and taught me how to play, where you have a 5x5 grid on a piece of paper. You can play this on a napkin at a restaurant, and players take turns naming letters that all players have to put onto their board, and you try to make as many words as possible. So I played this a lot with my grandfather taught me. I played it a lot with my father. And I love that tension of everybody has to deal with this thing, but when you're the one calling it out, you're usually calling it because you can use it. You can put it somewhere useful. So if you can think of a really tricky letter like J and you've planned for J, that's great for you. But everyone else is like, J, why would you say J? I can't make anything with that. So the Master Builder mode that was the original mode. And the Town Hall mode, where you're flipping cards sort of like in a roll and write that everyone must place, that came later during development. And that mode was AEG's idea. They wanted there to be a way to play that wasn't Master Builder, and that you could play with a big number of people. And then it turned out during lockdown that mode was really nice to have, so you can easily play over video chat. You can play Master Builder over video chat too, but AEG did live streams in the fall and in the summer last year where they would play Town Hall mode with, sometimes we had 150 people watching the stream, most of them playing along. So it's been a really fun mode to play in that format.
I guess you're still a player. You're not only a game designer.
Oh yeah.
How did the pandemic affected your gaming experiences?
Well, I managed to play a good amount of games. Fortunately, my wife Indiana is also a gamer, so we play a lot of games together, and we did through the pandemic. I was not meeting up with friends or family during the pandemic, so that was the extent of my in-person board gaming. I enjoy games online a lot through Board Game Arena, so I would hop on voice chat with a few friends, and we had several virtual game nights with some of our friends. We had a regular every other week game night on Board Game Arena. That was a lot of fun. I also have Vorpal board. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Vorpal board.
No.
How to describe Vorpal board? There is an arm, a camera mount that holds a smartphone above a table, and you literally live stream your game to your friends who join via browser. And then you can scan in components. So some of the components are digital, like cards can be digital, so they can click and drag them around the screen. So I played a few games that way as well. And it's fun because any game that I own, I can put on Vorpal board. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes to scan in a game, and then it's ready to go. And it also gave me a bit of that real gaming experience because I was the one hosting, so I have the game on my table. I get to move the pieces. Everyone else, it's more of a digital experience, but for me, it felt like I was, playing a real board game with just a digital version.
Oh, great. And now, as a game designer, you used to use tabletop simulator. Getting old is so hard. In playing online. But as a game designer, how do you feel about the use of apps in board games? And
Conjunction.
Yes. Some people say that I play board games because I want to be offline. And what's your take on that?
I think I fall sort of in the middle. I prefer to play games that don't have app implementations, or apps that are required to play the game, that's what you're referring to, right? Games that have an app companion. Yes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it opens a lot of interesting design space. So I definitely don't think it's it's wrong. It should be totally avoided. It's not my preference, but I have a few games that use an app timer that has like sound effects, or it's very easy to keep score. Like when we play Fuse, the speed dice game by Kane Klenko, I use the Fuse app for that, the Renegade timer app, because it just works nicely. So I totally don't have an issue with app companions. I prefer to play games, I suppose, that don't have an app, because I just like that it's just bits of wood and paper we're pushing around on a table, and that creates the whole experience. But there are definitely opportunities there that I think are interesting to explore.
You played role-playing games, war games, any other tabletop games?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in a D&D campaign right now with some friends. We play via roll20.net. So we started this virtual D&D campaign at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's still going. We might actually have our first in-person gathering in a couple of weeks. But yep, and then I just play, I guess, a range of modern board games, tabletop games. I tend to play lighter games, simpler games. I love party games. I love strategy games that take 45 minutes to an hour. So I definitely fall on the lighter end of the game weight spectrum.
Great. Going back a little bit about to talk about tiny towns again. Going back when your grandpa, right, taught your daddy, and you got the idea from. This is something really nice because it's something that came from your past and your present and your future. So it's something not just a game. It's a whole experience of a life experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to think about it.
Solo mode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an idea for solo mode as well? Okay, I know here, but what do you think about solo mode for games? Do you enjoy?
I am not a solo gamer myself. I have played solo games, like I've played the Agricola solo mode. I mean, it seems like solo modes are really taking off in popularity, and I think that's great. I mean, for a lot of people, board games are more about the puzzle aspect than the social aspect, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think I prefer a different sort of solo mode from what many people prefer. I prefer modes where I'm presented with a puzzle that I sort of solve on my own, rather than modes that simulate a 2-player game or 3-player game, like I'm playing against an AI opponent. But yeah, I'm not a huge solo gamer myself, but occasionally I'll think about how I might design a solo mode for my game, but it's not always my area of expertise, so I'd be open to having someone else design a solo mode for one of my games.
And this game was your first game, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Temple of Knowledge. I guess that was technically published before. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but this was published as well, and awards everywhere, nominated to animation to lots of places, people talking about, and people. Wow, how was to go to? You participated Gen Con as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then at that time, I saw some pictures of you holding the camera with people. And how was the sensation to see the success your game has?
It's surreal. I mean, it's been wild. I just feel so fortunate that I've been able to enjoy the success of Tiny Towns. I mean, going to Gen Con, and that photo is from leading a game of 1,000 people playing Tiny Towns at once. So we had several gigantic cards blown up with the resources. We played Town Hall mode, of course. And I called out the resources, and it was exhilarating. So, I don't know. It's just hard to beat that sensation. And just demoing my game, seeing people come and sit down and really eager to learn, especially after so many months of going to game stores and trying to kindly get strangers to play my game. Like, I promise it's not terrible. It doesn't take very long. Just if you could just please give me your opinion. It's wild to have so many people sitting down and say they've heard of my game. So it's still weird. I think it won't ever not be weird to see people posting pictures of Tiny Towns on Instagram. It's just so cool that this little game that I made is being played by people all over the world. So it's been great.
And one thing maybe you have friends or groups of friends that everyone brings a game to the game night or 2 games, and you play one, and then another game, different, and this does not happen to this one. No, let's play this one. Okay. Oh, we finished. Okay, one more time. Okay, and then can I play with you? And then I have to stand up. Okay, play, and then I have to wait until they finish. That's what happened here.
That's great. That's really cool.
I've been talking about your game since before the game was people. Okay, we'll bring to Brazil. Oh my God! Finally! Oh my God! That's so nice. I don't know if the companies were having a conversation before. I knew, but and now, Lepe, do you have any questions? I have 2 more.
Yes. Plans for the future. You're currently working in other games. What you're preparing?
So I have a couple of plans I can't talk about yet, unfortunately. I'm very excited to, but I can't share any specifics. Should be sometime later this year when I'm able to talk about those. But I do have a couple of designs in the works that I'm really hopeful for, and that I think I'll find publishers for. So one of my main projects right now is a game called Antiquarian, and it's about running antique shops. So each player has their own board that looks like looking at the cash register and shelves of an antique shop. And you auction to purchase items that are really wonky tiles of all different sizes. So they're polyominoes, but they'll be made up of like 24 squares instead of like 6 squares. So they're really, the shapes are really wild. And you purchase these tiles, you put them on your board, and then you sell them to customers. So your board, sort of like in Tiny Towns, is filling up with stuff and then emptying. I love tile laying games and I love polyomino games, but so many of them, you put different shapes on your board and your board fills up and then you score it. So I wanted one where you put things on your board and then the things do something and go away, and then you put even more things on your board. So the puzzle of your board is constantly in flux, always changing. And early playtests have gone really well for that one. There's another one that I started. I think I started the prototype for this one on Tuesday. This is not normal for me. I'm usually a very slow designer. I make like one game a year if I'm lucky, but it's been a good summer for me. So this game is called Scrap Ships right now, and it's another polyomino game, this time with reasonable sizes of 2 to 6 squares instead of up to 35. And it's got a bit of an engine building element to it, and players are working in a junkyard to build spaceships out of scrap parts while also collecting parts for themselves so they can make a ship and get away from this planet. Wow. So, and that was one where I had the mechanical idea first, and then I tried to come up with a theme as quickly as possible so I could design them together. And then Antiquarian was actually more of a theme first design. I love the way antique shops look and how there's stuff crammed wherever possible and hung up on the wall. So I wanted a game that felt like that cramped space of amazing items.
Wow, thank you. Wow, nice. I can't wait for what's coming next. Oh,
yeah, we'll see if they go anywhere, but yeah, I'm excited.
Nice. Lepe, you have the question. We have a classic question here.
Okay.
We have a block that's called games that fills in your pocket, or because they are small, or because they are cheap or affordable. We would like you to suggest 3 games that fits in your pocket.
Yeah, because of the price or because of the size?
Okay, let's see. I've got to look to my shelves behind me for inspiration. And I'm going to count my own pockets, which are usually pretty big, so I'm going to get flexible with the sizes. So, off the top of my head, No Thanks is one of my favorite games. You're familiar with that one?
Yes.
It's just such a good game. I can't find any fault with it. It's just so fun to play with a group of friends. It's a bit rowdy, so I adore that game. Let's see. I've been really enjoying Abandon All Artichokes lately. Comes in a bit of a bigger tin. Might be a stretch to fit in your pocket, but I definitely can fit it into my pocket. That's by Emma Larkins. Are you familiar with this one?
I saw the cover. I saw on BGG, but I'm anxious to grab that one as well.
It's so fun. It's deck building at its purest and simplest. It's just such a good design, and you simply win by drawing a hand with no artichoke cards in it, and you start with a deck of 10. So every single turn, at the end of your turn, do I win now? You know, you draw 4 cards that aren't artichokes, and then the last one is always an artichoke. I'm terrible at it, but it's a blast. Okay, and then the last one I'll pick, I will say there's so many good choices. I love really small games. Deep Sea Adventure from Oink Games. It's very, very small. It's a little push your luck game where players are deep sea divers who are sharing an oxygen tank from a submarine. Yeah. So you're pushing your luck together and you're wasting oxygen that everyone is sharing, and you have to choose when to turn back. It actually uses roll and move as one of the central mechanisms, but it does it really well and in a way that is super fun. So it's really small in your pocket. It's pretty small on the table. It's a great little design.
Oh, thanks. I'll have a look at that. I didn't know that.
It's great, and all these games are I believe under $20. They're quite cheap.
Great. Lepe, mais uma? Acabou?
No, that's it.
Okay, Peter, we would like to thank you very much for your time being with us, and hopefully, in the near future, we could talk more again for your upcoming games once they are released.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'd be happy to be back.
Thanks a lot. E aqui, galera, it's a pleasure. Aqui, galera, temos aqui o grande Peter McPherson com o jogo que está saindo aqui no Brasil, tá? E o pessoal de Portugal também, dá uma olhadinha. Chicos de Latinoamérica, vean aquí nuestro encuentro con Peter McPherson sobre su juego Tiny Towns. Hasta pronto. Até logo, galera.